Anyone
Okay,
can
I
start
can start.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll start. I always like to go first. This is Sue Amaro, and I am, for the purposes of this project, I'm responsible for the data entry and analysis and reporting for WINGS in Maine.
Yeah. Got it.
Hi, I'm Chris Parsons. I'm a clinical supervisor. I work with Sue here at WINGS in Bangor, and I supervisor and a coach that does the survey, and Tom, and that's me.
I'm Jenny Dow. I'm the training coordinator here at WINGS, and I'm going to be doing some of the coaching in the field.
Okay.
Hi, and we're from Camden County, New Jersey. It's Ray and Sherry. We're the Quality Assurance Department here, and we're involved with interviews, the whole process. So we're excited to have this new thing.
Great. Anybody else left?
And I'm Ashley from WINGS. I'm the administrative assistant. I do the data entry.
Okay.
I'm curious, where's WINGS located?
Maine, right?
Yeah, our central office is in Bangor. Ashley's calling from Presque Isle, and we have several other offices throughout the state. Yeah.
Okay, great. And so, I think I've spoken with a lot of you guys, or you've seen my email address or what have you. But my name is Hattie Quick. I'm a research study assistant here at the University of Washington, and I've been scheduling a lot of these trainings for WrapTrack. I'll also probably be the person that answers most of your questions or concerns as we go through this process. I get all the Wrap eval emails sent right to me, so I'm usually going to be responding to you guys. But I'll let April introduce herself as well.
Hey guys, I'm April Safer, and you probably know me from back in the Wonders days. And Hattie has been gracious enough to take over most of this work as far as WrapTrack goes, so that's why things have been getting done much more efficiently.
Now.
It was fine before, too.
So happy to talk to you.
Okay, guys, so what we're going to do is we're just going to go through this little agenda here and talk about sort of the purpose of today's training and get you looking at WrapTrack and talking about logins and passwords. Also, we want to get you guys to kind of look at some of the data that was mapped over from Wonders. April and I have done some extensive testing with that, but we'd also like you guys to just kind of go through and take a quick peek at that. We'll go through youth enrollment into WrapTrack, data entry reports, exports, and then the timeline that we're hoping that you guys could give us feedback on your kind of brief testing of the new system, and then we'll actually go into the system and play around with it and show you real time what it looks like, okay?
Okay.
Great. So, and if you have any questions as we go through this, just stop me and let me know. The first little slide here is going to talk about what is required in order to make WrapTrack run well on your computers. A couple of things would be to point out here, Windows 7 is really going to be the ideal operating system to use. Basically, you just want to make sure that your computers are up to date as possible because this is a pretty complex system and requires the most current internet browser as well and operating system. And we also, as you can see down here, really recommend folks to use Google Chrome. It looks better as you're going into the system. Internet Explorer, for some reason, kind of makes it look a little different online for some odd reason. We don't really know why, but so Google Chrome is our recommendation. I mean, they work well in all of the updated versions of these browsers, but we just found Chrome to be the best one. And if you need to download that to your computer or what have you, there's a little link right here, so you can have access to that there. Additionally, one of the things that you're going to want to make sure to do is to add all of these email addresses to your safe sender list. And hopefully Wrap Eval, which is the one I was talking about earlier, has already, you've already done that. That's us at UW, obviously. But these other bottom two are connected to WrapTrack. And that's, for example, like if you've forgotten your password, and I'll show you exactly what you can do if that happens. You'll click on a little link that says "Forgot Password," and the system will email you what your password is, but it's probably going to come from one of these email addresses, no reply email addresses. So you just want to make sure they're on your safe sender list. Okay. Fancy. Introduction. Here we go. All right. So similar to Wonders, this WrapTrack includes the Wi-Fi 4, the TOM, but we're also adding the Wi-Fi EZ, which is one of our new measures here. And I don't know if anyone has expressed interest in this yet at this point. However, it is an option to start using. You can replace your Wi-Fi 4 with Wi-Fi EZ. There are probably going to be some communities that might decide to use both, or you can continue to use the Wi-Fi 4, whatever makes sense most for your community. And if you're struggling to determine what that is, again, feel free to email me or April at the Wrap Eval email address, and we can work through it for you and determine what makes the most sense. If anybody is interested, kind of just let me know at the end of this training, and we can talk about a little bit about how you would access some of the materials.
Well, the Wi-Fi EZ, that's an online version?
It is connected. It is in WrapTrack. However, there is also like a paper or PDF version that people can use, and then that can be entered into WrapTrack. What we're trying to do is actually get our programmers connecting a link that we could potentially share with folks, like caregivers, if they're going to complete the Wi-Fi EZ, because it is a self-administered tool. So we're trying to make that work so that a facilitator could share a link with a caregiver, and they could just go right in and fill out the Wi-Fi EZ form online. But that may not work always the best way for communities as well. So there's a possibility of completing it on paper, and then someone else would be doing the data entry piece. So there's a couple options for that.
Okay,
thanks.
Sure. Okay, so basically we're just going to give you some information about where WrapTrack is located, and April's been giving great examples of what it sort of means. I might steal hers and just use it for my own purposes here. But so basically, it's built on this WrapTMS platform, essentially. And so when we go into the system or start showing screenshots, you'll see that Wraparound Team Monitoring System, or WrapTMS, will sort of be apparent on a lot of the screens or headers of the screens, etc. So basically, what it means, and I might not even be able to say it as well as April is, but the TMS is sort of like, well, I'm not even going to do it. I'm going to mess it up.
No, that's right.
You want to do it?
Yeah, well, basically, I mean, some of you guys have probably heard of TMS already. It's a new comprehensive web-based tracking system that we've been building over the last year and a half. Because of some of the research we've been doing in the field, and some of our experience has shown that while many sites are really into collecting fidelity data, there's not so many tools available for folks who want to track team progress, talk about strengths, areas for improvements in youth engagement, family engagement, documentation, Medicaid funding, outcomes, residential stuff. So basically we built a system to help teams kind of track where they're at beyond fidelity, and it's also a tool for even facilitators to get in and use and track team progress, etc. So as we were building this, we kind of recognized this really great opportunity for an upgrade to one system, which is kind of like this new condo building or this new home that's just been built, and WrapTrack is kind of like the mother-in-law apartment that is new. It's great. It's got its own kitchen. It's built on the same lot, but it's not quite as it doesn't have all the things that TMS has. And as we go through the training, you'll see, okay, well, this, you can see why it works really well in TMS. We have it in WrapTrack. It's not as useful because there's just not as much information to contain in WrapTrack. But yeah, just a little bit about the platform that it's built on.
She does
Can we, however, still just use the fidelity index and the TOM aspects of this?
Yep, yeah, exactly. So it can be separate for sure. It can be, if a TMS user wants to eventually use WrapTrack, they can, or vice versa. If a WrapTrack user wants to eventually use TMS, they can. And the youth will all be linked.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I should have recorded that so I can just hit play every time we get to these slides, but I did not do that. But anyway, thank you, April. That was great. And I think we have a couple more slides on that. But you can just see some of the other information connected to WrapTMS, and April was mentioning this a little bit, but here are some of the other features and functions. And there it is. If you were interested, though, in possibly learning more about TMS, you know, getting a feel for what it might look like for your community, there's the ability to get a 30-day pass, essentially a free testing pass, and trying it out and getting some usernames and logins for that for your community if you just like to see what it might feel like. So if you're interested in that, again, RapEval email address would be the place to go and request that, and I'll probably be the person that gets you all set up on it, and you can check it out. So let us know. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the WrapTrack portion of this, and you can see on this slide, this is the actual link that you're going to want to click on to get to WrapTrack. And as we were talking about, here's where this is going to be sort of apparent throughout the system. This team monitoring made simple, TMS, is sort of at the top of all of this, again, because it's the platform for where WrapTrack is held. As we get into the system, you'll start to see that, like, it says WrapTrack right down here, and that's when you'll know you're in the right place, essentially. But this screen kind of is your login, and this is that link that we were talking about where if you do forget your password, you're just going to go ahead and click on that. And excuse me, and one of those no reply emails will send you what your password is that you might have forgotten. A couple of things about the passwords that are going to be important to remember. So we've been testing this a little bit now, and we're starting to discover that most people's passwords that were your Wonders passwords have been working in order to log in initially. However, and we believe the time frame is roughly 60 days, but 60 days from when you log in the first time, you're going to need to change your password, and it's going to now need to be HIPAA and FERPA compliant. So there's a lot of, you know, special things that need to happen in that password to make that appropriate. At least 6 characters. I think you have to have a number and a, you know, one of those like other characters on the keyboard. So, you know, as secure as possible. We can't just do wrap team 123 anymore or something like that. So, and you guys are really going to be responsible for maintaining your own passwords. Again, the system requires us to have the passwords changed on a regular basis, and I think it is about 60 days, every 60 days. So you might want to start to create a little system of remembering what those are. Additionally, it won't let you do, oops, I did the same thing. It won't let you reuse a previous password. Keeps a history of all the ones. So it's just going to be important to know how to manage that, because actually April and I in this new WrapTrack system aren't able to see your passwords anymore. So that's going to be important to note as well. If there are issues that you have coming up or questions that you have, concerns that you have, when you email us, you're going to need to share your login and password so we can go ahead and log in as you and replicate any issue or error that you might be having. So that's just down the road in the future, but something to kind of keep in mind. And additionally, if you are trying to log in and you are inserting the incorrect password, there is a certain amount of invalid login attempts that it will allow. We believe it's somewhere around 6 or 7. We're trying to get confirmation from the programmer about the exact number, but you know, it's a high number. But it would maybe be worth you know, hitting that forgot password link instead of blocking yourself out, because then you'll need to contact April or myself, and we'll have to get you back in the system. So, all right. Any questions about passwords?
What's the inactivity period that forces a log off?
Actually, once you log in, you can set that for yourself.
It, you know, like some things, if you haven't logged on for a month, you're set out. Is that what it is?
So there would be 60 days.
Okay.
60, okay.
Yeah, that's what we're, okay. All right, so just some new things to think about for passwords in the future. Obviously, for right now, your passwords are fine, but next time around, you'll need to make sure to keep that in your mind. Okay, the next slide here is kind of talking about the levels of logins and permissions around that. You can see on the left-hand side here sort of what the levels were in Wonders. And obviously, April and I were always that level 1 permission, so we had the ability to see everything and touch everything and run reports and all of that. So that's housed here at the UW with the work team. And then you have that next level 2 step, which is, always someone in your organization or business. So I think, like for example, Sue, I think are you the level 2 for Wings?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so yeah, it kind of followed a pattern, and there's a similar sort of structure for WrapTrack. However, there is a little bit more flexibility because, as you can see at the bottom, we're able to be a little bit more flexible with the permissions, and you can customize them even for your community. So it can be specific to whatever your needs are. But basically, in each community, there's going to be a configuration admin, which again will be one of us. And then that next step down at level 2 is going to be that jurisdictional admin or the local head of your community. And obviously, in Wonders terms, we always said a community or a business. Now in WrapTrack, that is essentially called a configuration. It all means the same thing, but it's just a slight change of terminology. So your configuration, your business, that's going to be the person in that jurisdictional admin role, and we'll be able to give everybody else some of these other levels down here permissions, again, if it's just reporting only or data only or exporting as well, data entry, all of that stuff. So we can kind of help walk through that for you guys if you're, hitting a roadblock at all in trying to determine what permissions make sense for your community.
How many can you have at the local head level?
I think you can have as many as you need, right?
You can, the way they map the data over, they only assign one jurisdictional admin because that's just how it was in Wonders.
Right.
You can have as many program admins as you want, and you can literally give them as much, then you can give them the same permissions that you give the jurisdictional admin. Yeah. So technically, yeah, I guess there would only be one person titled as jurisdictional admin. However, a program admin could essentially have the same permissions. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is really just really quickly going to show you this slide. This is just the purpose of showing you what a configuration, again, business, community, configuration, all the same thing, would look like. And I'm just going to quickly get off of this slide because it actually does have real people and their email addresses and all of that, and we thought we blocked them, but we still have them up here. But basically, name of the person, their login name, their user role, organization, email address. So that's just a quick example of what a configuration sort of looks like. So, we'll talk to you guys about that if we need to do that for each community. All right. So the home page, this is what we're really getting into the meat of this, and we're going to slide into the demo here in a second, but I just want to show you a couple screenshots just to get you guys familiar with what you're going to be seeing when we get into the system. So a few important things. Obviously, again, here's that WrapTrack. It's a little bit in a smaller text and font and all of that, but it is here, so this lets you know that you're in the WrapTrack portion of TMS. Up at the top here, you can see that this is the person that we logged in as, and here is their organization, community, configuration name next to it right here. So again, all those kind of terminologies are meaning the same thing. If you need to change or want to change your password, this is one of the ways that you can do that. But this option, this little link here at the top, means that you have to already know what your current password is in order to change it. So just going to bear that in mind. User settings and log out, obviously. But basically what you're looking at here is sort of a dashboard system that TMS is set up as. And you can also just manipulate this in any way that you might want to do. And we'll show you a little bit about how to do that when we're in the system. But these like little clicks here, I guess, like the X and the, expand and make smaller buttons allow you to do that. You can also add more tabs at the top here, but for the purposes of WrapTrack, you're not really going to want to do that. It's an option, but it wouldn't be very valuable for you guys to do that. So you can kind of ignore that piece. Okay, so just want to draw your attention to this menu tab here, or button, because we're going to show you the next slide, and here's what it does. So when you click on that menu button, this little drop down comes up. And one more time, here we go. So it shows you a time and date stamp is what's happening here. So it kind of keeps track of what's happening, and that's important for some of the data entry in the system at a later point. So I'll let you know where that comes into play, but it's nice to have that. Your home button or tab is just going to bring you back to that dashboard page. Youth enrollment, this is where you're going to go ahead and enroll your youth, add your youth to WrapTrack, similar to what we had in Wonders, but it just is a little bit updated and nicer. And your WrapTrack tab here, it gives you access to your reports and the export feature. And then the admin tab is really going to be for those users, like the jurisdictional admin, probably more likely than not will be the one that has access to that admin tab. So not all users are going to have that. And then you just close, you'd click on this little X to close it out. Otherwise, it just stays open. So anyway, so that's that. All right, so, excuse me, youth enrollment. So when you get in there, we'll take you to what is sort of called like a youth page. It's this youth tab here. And it gives you the basic demographic information, etc. But the important thing to note here on this slide is this enrollment button at the bottom, this big green button, and that's going to be important. So when you enter a new youth into WrapTrack, you need to make sure that they're actually enrolled as well, because this enrollment status thing that you see here, which is kind of gray a little bit at the moment, but this could also say pending. So you want to make sure that it doesn't say pending, that it actually says enrolled. So we'll walk you through how to do that. But when you click on this little green button, it brings up a new little pop-up box, and then you would click on Add Enrollment Status, and that's how you would do that. And you can see for this particular use that they were entered into the system on 8/11, so they were pending on that date, and that they were actually enrolled on 8/12. So you might do this all in the same day, and that's certainly appropriate. So, all right, this is what your Wi-Fi data entry pages are going to look like, and we'll walk you through how to locate this when we're actually in the system. But there's another tab right next to that one use tab called Assessments, and Assessments is where you're going to find the Wi-Fi 4, the TOM, the Wi-Fi EZ. So that's going to be important to note, and then you would just click on Edit, Delete, Add, whatever you're wanting to do in here, and that just shows you one of the things. Very similar to what was in Wonders, very self-explanatory. Once we get in there, I'll actually show you what it looks like, but shouldn't have any problems there. This is what the reports look like. Again, pretty similar. There were a list of reports that you could access. This time around, you'll actually click on the report that you want to look at and then add your qualifiers to that report. And we'll walk through how to do that. But we've also condensed the reports down to only 10 and combined a few, but they're all still there. And this is what they'll look like. Again, we'll show you more in real time. Here's exports. Same kind of thing. This is a little bit more fancy in terms of some of the other qualifiers or filters that you can do to export data. And then this is an example, a small example of what it would look like if you were actually exporting data.
Was that a click on the previous page?
No, actually, it's
How did you get the exports?
the export is I just
Oh, the main menu.
pack.
Okay, it's the main menu?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And then you'll see it. It'll make a little bit more sense when we actually are in the live demo. So, but that's where that would be located. Excuse me. And then same thing for Tom. Located in the same place under assessments. The form is going to look pretty similar. The main difference with the Tom that you'll be able to notice here is that it's been divided into a couple of different parts instead of just being on one long page. So we like the way that that looks and feels. And then same thing with Tom reports. Here are the links. Again, a couple have been combined, but basically looks the same, but nicer views of what the reports look like in comparison to what Wonders has. So we're excited about that. Okay, so actually at this point, I'm going to go ahead and bring up, where is it? Here we go. Go ahead and bring up the actual system, and we're going to log in. Let's see, Brad Pitt first maybe? Sure. Okay.
Yeah, let's do enrollment first.
Okay. So we're logging in with Brad Pitt. He's our fake user for the test team. Okay. So, well, let me take a step back. Any questions before we move forward in the actual system? Okay, doesn't seem like it. So just let me know, pipe up if you have any. So this is basically what it looks like. Again, here is that home page, that sort of dashboard system, and what we were talking about before, like if you wanted to get rid of something like reminders is what I just clicked off the screen. This isn't really like a helpful button to, or one of these like little links to have. Oops, that's not the one I wanted to hit. This is the one I want to hit. You can expand this if you want youth records to take up the majority of your dashboard here on your home page, which is probably going to be the section of the dashboard that you'll use the most, honestly. You know, you can make this the same size, or I think you can anyway. You should be able to, or what?
It only lets you do the top one.
Oh, well, let's do the top one. Okay, so never mind about that. But you've got this other guy over here, and quick links is a nice little feature as well, because same as the menu, I'll just open it so you can see. You have enrollment here, and it's add a new youth record, and essentially work with an existing youth record or work with all youth records would be the same as sort of find a new youth record as the quick link down here. But it just gives you the option of clicking here or on the menu button to do some of that. So what we're going to do is just kind of quickly enter a fake youth so you can look at what it's like to actually add a new youth. So let me do that, and I'm on April's computer that has an interesting keyboard, so bear with me. Okay. And one thing is I'm tabbing through this, but you can also, you know, hit these drop downs to select what you're looking for. But like, for example, I hit C, the letter C on the keyboard for a Caucasian, so that's just something interesting to point out. And then date of birth. And I do want to make sure that you guys know this. If you're not necessarily, if your community or configuration isn't going to actually want to enter first and last name, date of birth, or something like that, if you want to use a code number, you can certainly just use an ID or a code for that. And you can also just type in 0000000, whatever, however many it is, for the date of birth. So you don't need to actually add that information either. But for the purposes of this,
Let me go back over that. You're saying for names, you don't have to put names, but we can just put numbers.
correct. You can just use their ID number, what we're calling the WRAP ID, or what was originally the Youth and Family ID in Wonders.
Now before we used the IDs, which kept the issue of confidentiality. I guess you said this is HIPAA compliant, so we're okay with that if we put a name in.
Yeah, absolutely. But some communities just feel like they still would like to not do that, and it's just an option that we're giving. Yeah.
Go ahead and the rest of no name.
Thanks.
Sure. Okay, so no name, get rid of that. All right, sorry, bear with us, guys. We're just doing one quick little thing, and we just want to...
What would you do if you don't put the name in? You just
So
put the case number. Okay.
what we'll do is take your RAP ID and insert it into the first and last name.
Yeah, see, right here.
Okay.
So
Put it under the name.
Yep.
Okay.
I just typed it into the RAP ID, and it just populated with first and last name right there.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I'll just really quickly choose, oh, look at that. Valentine's Day. Didn't even notice. As the date of birth, and there's just a couple of other parts that we want to draw your attention to, case number and Medicaid number. And you don't have to complete these, but this is just for the purposes of whether or not you want to include that information. You're more than welcome to. As you guys may remember in Wonders, there were quite a few other IDs that you might want to type in or something like that. We've tried to keep it simple with just the RAP ID, which again, as a reminder, is the Youth and Family ID that you are using in Wonders. And so that would be the most important ID in here to add. So, and you can put anything. I'm just going to leave the street stuff all there, and go ahead and hit save. And this little box pops up that asks you, great, you saved it. Do you want to continue moving forward and add some additional information? And I'm going to go ahead and say yes. And just as a reminder, the information that we just added and the next tab that I'm going to show you here, which is called WrapTrack, are pieces that are from that demo form, that WIFI demo form. So that's going to be important to remember. However, there are also some other pieces that are just generated by the system. For example, we're in Brad Pitt's login, so this was entered by Brad Pitt. You can see that it was done on the date, obviously today's date, and edited on today's date. Now, if we were to go in the system 5 days from now and make an edit to this particular used file, that would be captured here on last edited on. So that's kind of a new addition that's kind of fun, and that's connected to that timestamp and date stamp feature in the menu button right here that we were talking about. One other thing to point out on this particular piece of the demo form would be primary caregiver, enrollment status, and facilitator. And I'll jump into enrollment here in a second, but the facilitator and primary caregiver are currently blank, and the reason behind that is because this information isn't generated unless you complete a WIFI 4 or a WIFI EZ caregiver form, so or facilitator form. So that information is actually populated from that form. So that's why until you complete one of those, that's just going to be kind of blank for right now. But the enrollment status that we were talking about, as you can see, pending, and it tells you the date and for how long that use has been pending. What we're going to go ahead and do is enroll this use now, like we saw on the PowerPoint, and continue from there. So I'm going to hit the enrollment button. Again, you can see this information is all here. If you wanted to edit that for whatever reason, you could go ahead and hit the edit button. But we're just going to go ahead and click on this add enrollment status. All right, and so we're just going to say that we're enrolling the use in the same day today. We're going to go ahead and click enrolled. One thing I'll just click on the drop down again though is if you have a use that's enrolled, for example, and let's say in a year they've discharged from services and you want to indicate that in this particular system, you would go ahead and click on discharged, and you can put a discharge date and a discharge reason. I'll show you some of that a little bit later on in the demo here, but that's certainly something that you can track here in the system, which is a little bit less complicated than it was, or maybe even more useful than it was in Wonders at least. And then the final piece of this that you would want to do is choose your organization. So for example, you may have multiple sub-sites under your main business organization configuration. So just to keep that in mind, so this is where you would select those if you did have multiple sites.
Yeah, what we used to call sub-sites, we now call organizations.
Yeah, that's true. I should start really getting used to this new terminology. It's hard to transition language. it's a whole nother language set to learn. So at any rate, but that's where you would find that information. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit save. And it tells me up here in these fun little boxes that was done successfully. So I'm going to close out of this youth enrollment. So now I've basically added all that information, the youth in here, enrolled, and I'm ready to really enter some more data. So there's a couple more pieces that you'll find that were on the demo form, for example, and that's located on this WrapTrack tab. So I'm just going to show you that real quick. And it's just those school pieces of information that would be found at the bottom of that form. Has the youth been in school, yes or no? Like, for example, if you click no, it then gives you these options that you'll find familiar as to whether or not, this is a reason why, or you can click other, for example, and then if you click other, you can type in, blah, 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 whatever it is. And then you would select the option of what grade is the youth going to be in the new school year. And even there's an option of NA or, other again, and that's, something that you can document here. Just going to hit save after we do that, though. And we'll just close out of that little message box. So that's pretty much it. So that demo form, enrolling in youth, that's how you do that piece of information. Now, when you're ready to actually get to, like, a WIFI caregiver or a WIFI facilitator or a TOM, here's where you're going to locate that. You're going to click on your assessment tab. And right now, you can see that we have no forms in for this particular youth. And we're just going to hit the Add button. And based on your configurations set up, some people only might use the WIFI 4, some people only might use the WIFI EZ, only use the TOM. Whatever your configuration setup is, that's what will show up in this list. So you may not see all of it, or you may see everything that's appropriate. What we're going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and click on the caregiver WIFI form just to show you also how the caregiver and facilitator information gets populated back. So it shows up here. Let's expand that. Shows up here as a separate pop-up. And here's some information, which is great, that gets pulled over from what we just entered in that demographics section, which is very nice. And this is where you fill out some of the other stuff. But I'm just, for the purposes of this, going to do a quick run through. Okay. And we'll just pretend that we did this here. This is all going to look really similar to Wonders, excuse me, and it mimics the WIFI pretty accurately. And actually, I'm just going to click no. And we're just going to click on these folks and say that this is part of their team. So you can see this just, again, follows the WIFI form. And then here's where, if you happen to select, I think it's, where is that example? It's one of these, I thought, that brought up other members. Either way, you can additionally add, other people in these little boxes over here. All right, then quickly going to go through this section. Again, you can click and select, or you can tab and just hit 1, 2, whatever it is. This one didn't save. One thing, though, that's going to be important to note, and this is different than Wonders, and we're going to hopefully get this edited in another iteration of WrapTrack. But for right now, if you were to leave something blank, you can move on to the next question or the next piece of the measure, which was not that way in Wonders. You had to answer every question. So this does allow you to move forward without entering. So you just want to kind of pay attention to what you're entering at this point, given that that's the case. Just quickly tab through all this. Final phase, transition phase. Okay, and then I'll select the Other tab, and you can just, whatever, type stuff in here if you want, or if you don't need to do that, obviously. We'll say that it was that many minutes. I'm just going to go ahead and hit the Save button, and it says, great, that was saved successfully. So I will minimize it and actually just close out of it. And you can see it pops up right there. There it is. One thing, I'll just go back and go ahead and show you, oops, the facilitator for some reason didn't save, but Jane as the caregiver did save there. So that information is populated. I believe actually it's because the facilitator will be populated from the facilitator form. So the caregiver in this section comes from the caregiver form. The facilitator would come from the WIFI facilitator form. Okay, so that's data entry right there. Any questions about how to enroll a youth, get the demo information in, complete a WIFI Easy or a TOM form, anything like that?
Yeah, it seems pretty similar to Wonders.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's pretty self-explanatory in a lot of ways, but hopefully, looks new and improved for a lot of folks, so we're excited about it. All right, so no questions. We're going to move right on to the report.
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I couldn't reach my phone, and we have new phones. I couldn't find the unmute. If we, like right now, we're not doing the facilitator with these. So you're saying there's no way to put the facilitator name? Because, we would like to use it for coaching and training of our staff, some of the data.
Okay. Well, I wanted
to open up the facilitator form and see if we can just save that.
Yeah, we were just conferring here, and you might just be able to go ahead and open the facilitator form, enter the facilitator's form name here. No, it's supposed to be Bob, and probably just save as is.
Connect it to the youth, but just don't answer all the questions or something.
Yeah, it is giving us this little pop-up box that says something about the start.
Well, something to think about, okay?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not going to let you know.
Actually, I think we will start doing the facilitator ones, but if we don't have them, we still want to be able to learn by facilitator, So anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you're going to start using them, then obviously, yeah, you can have that information generated that way. But April and I might talk to our programmers about it because, as you could see, as we were trying to do that just now, for some reason, it doesn't save unless we had the start time and end time in here, which is obviously you don't want to just make up a piece of information about that. So we'll see if there's going to be a way in the future where you could just put the name and then hit save and nothing else. Because, again, right now you see it says this should be between 0 to 120 minutes, the length of this interview. So it's not letting us.
Thank you for checking.
Yeah, so we'll get back to you on that. But, okay. All right, well, what we're going to do is I'll just take us home, and then I'll go ahead and we'll walk through the reports. So since we were doing the WIFI data entry, we'll click on a TOM report just so you guys can see some of what those look like. So basically, here are all the links. And what you're going to do now, which is a little bit different than the way it was set up in Wonders, is instead of putting all your qualifiers in first and then getting a list of the reports populate from that, you're going to select the report first and then go from there. So let's just go ahead and say that we want the fidelity report. Pardon me. And I'm just going to say you can do it by, individual or organization. I'm going to do it by one organization. And, actually, I think I might need to transition here because we might not.
Yeah, there's probably not updated.
Yeah, there's not going to actually be an update in this one. So
Brad Pitt hasn't done a lot of TOMs.
Brad Pitt hasn't done a lot of TOMs at all. I'm going to log out really quickly and show you another site that we have here with de-identified information, and then we'll go from there. And then this site actually doesn't use, oh, that's weird, where did that go? Oh, okay, well, we'll just go here. This site doesn't use the TOM, so I'm just going to show you the WIFI. So I took that back, sorry about that. But we'll still do the fidelity report here. So we'll click on this link. I'm just going to click on one organization. I'll just look at this particular one, but you can see that this configuration has 2. Click on that. We'll look at all youth. So all youth have already been selected. I'm just going to hit continue. And here's where you can do the qualifiers of the dates, again, if that seems appropriate to what you're looking at. If not, you can just select all data. And then if you want to look at the most recent record, the first record, the mean score, I'm going to do that. This is the new feature, which is kind of a nice one, nice addition. You're going to go ahead and click this box, Keep Qualification, if you want to look at all of those reports in this same way. So if you want to look at all of the mean scores for the entirety of youth in that particular subsite. So that's the little box that you would select, and we're just going to hit continue, and it'll generate the report for us. Okay, so a couple of new pieces that are kind of a nice feature is that when you think about exporting this, you can do it into PDF, you can do it into Excel, you can do it into a Word document. We're going to show you what it looks like in a PDF here in a second, but before we do that, a couple other pieces of this that I want to point out at the top here. So for some of your reports, those of which obviously that also have been combined, you'll have a little drop-down menu here at the top, and it allows you to choose these different sections. So right now we're in overall fidelity, but you can also look at principal scores, principal and respondent by phase. I'll click on principal and respondent, and I'll have all of these selected. And you can, well, let's just, for the purpose of the demo, I'll just remove 2. And we'll go ahead. And so it shows you all of that facilitator and caregiver data compared with the national mean. And if, for whatever reason, if this report happened to be a little bit longer than 1 page, you could actually use these navigational tools to move to the next page or what have you. And the final piece I want to show you before we export this into a PDF is the refresh button. So this is kind of nice because if you do have someone that's data entering and you're one of the levels that is just looking at reports and you go in there, but you know that someone's entering data, you might want to go ahead and click on that refresh button, and it'll go ahead and load all that information that was just entered by that individual real time. So, all right, let's go ahead and export this to a PDF. And it pops up down here if you're in Chrome. And that's what the report will look like in a PDF version. And so basically, it gives you some information. Here's that configuration, which again is your business or your community name. It tells you the report, and this is report 7C because we're looking at the principal and respondent. It also tells you that we pulled it for one organization based on the mean of all assessments, and we didn't do a date range, but if we had, it would have shown up there. And then it also tells you it was printed on this date, the date that we chose it. So that's a fun little feature to have, and I'm just going to go ahead and close out of that. So that's the reporting section, and the TOM reports look similar. The WIFI-EZ reports we're working on still. So any questions about reporting before we move on to the exporting feature?
Well, we can pull out reports on individual, we call them care managers instead of resource facilitators. We can identify just how one person is doing, right, a staff?
Yeah, that's not necessarily what the WIFI is for. The TOM is a little more specific for that kind of supervision. People certainly do that. It's not totally recommended. What's that?
Why can't you do the WIFI?
Well, the items of the WIFI, it's not that you can't do it. The items of the WIFI are less aimed towards facilitator performance, whereas some of the items on the TOM are more like, was the facilitator, did the facilitator do X, Y, and Z? And there are a couple of items in the wiki. Another reason is it tends to make facilitators a little squiggly.
Yeah.
You know, they're answering these questions too, and it would likely elevate scores a little bit more, and people feel
Well, you could do it based on just the caregiver or just the youth, right?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah. Like the other organization said, they're not doing the resource facilitators. We do them, but we take our primary credence in terms of how the consumers are responding.
Yeah, and that's what we recommend anyway. But
Yeah.
but you
Hopefully
get my
we
point.
spend them well enough they know what the right answers would be anyway.
Well,
Except
that's
for the care managers.
yeah.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
And
If I have to get back to you individually, I will, but I think we could pull that out.
Yeah, yeah, and that.
We
Go ahead.
basically, for individual care managers, we wanted to know we've been hand scoring those, where I don't think we have to really.
what do you mean, like creating your own report, kind of based on the raw data?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just like if we want to know for a care manager, we did a couple WIPIs for youth that they have. We've just been scoring them by hand to see how their youth are responding. But we could get this out of this system, though.
Gotcha.
I know
Yeah.
what you're
Well, there's still no way to cut the data by facilitator, if that's what you're asking.
Okay.
What you could do is assign each youth a specific ID by facilitator, and then pull
And
those
then you
IDs.
could do it that way, yeah.
You can select the youth individually, but there's no report to cut it.
Gotcha.
Same as Wonders.
Okay.
Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to the export, and here again is where that's located. So when you hit your menu button, you go to that WrapTrack tab, and it'll bring you up the reports and the export. So we're just going to hit export. All right, so this looks a little bit different than how it did in Wonders, but this is where you're going to select whether or not you want to look at one particular youth, and if you know that youth's name, you can just type it in here, or their ID, search by them, pull it up, boom, you know, move forward with that. Or if you want to look at multiple youth, you're going to select that one, and then choose whatever form you're wanting to look at. So we'll just click on youth form. And at this point, you can either just, if you had a long, long list, you could hit select all, and it would just generate that for everybody. Or you could click on none and just choose, you know, 2 of the 3 or whatever you want to do. I'm just going to go ahead and have them all selected. And then you go down here to filter data. The first drop-down, content, is really the way that you want to look at the data. Whether you want to look at just the numeric values, so the 0, 1, and 2, or the text value, yes, no, somewhat, or both together. For this, I'm just going to go ahead and look at both. And you can do comma-separated values or Excel spreadsheet. Typically recommend that. The scope is really up to you in terms of how you want to filter this for. You can say, I want all data on these 3 youth, or, you know, just this year, this quarter, this month. The specific dates, though, might be the most valuable for you all, because I think a lot of times when you're pulling reports, you're pulling for a certain range, and it might be, you know, October 1st through December 31st or something like that. So,
Yeah, if we want to look at a fiscal year, we could do
Exactly.
it that way too, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's when you want to go ahead and hit specific dates, and then that's where you would go ahead and say, okay, well, I want to, well, actually, I'm going to choose a different year. I'm going to go to 2012. I want to look, you know, for the 1st of January to January, you know, of this year. So, but you can do that in any way, you know, that makes sense for you guys, exactly. And then the last piece of this before we preview the output is whether or not you want to remove any identifying information. And if you did, you just select that box, you know, it's name, date of birth, etc. But you may not need to do that for the purposes of your exporting. So we're going to go ahead and leave that be and just hit preview output. Okay, so there is the ability to email this report. And I'm going to go ahead and pull it up, but I'm not going to send it. I just want to show you what the format looks like, since I don't want to have to show you April's email. So I'll just hit that and show you what it would look like. And so I'm logged in as someone named Erica, and I would send it to whoever. You can CC people. You put whatever report that you're sending, text in the message box, and then you'd hit send, and it would just show up in that individual's email, which is a fun little feature. That's certainly a new one. But for this purpose, we're just going to go ahead and look at it in Excel. But I do want to show you that when you preview it here, it kind of looks a little bit different than it did in Wonders. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but you can see that some of the questions are actually labeled differently at the top here. So we'll talk about that in a sec. I'll just go ahead and export that into Excel so we can see it. So I'm going to grab the corner of this thing over here. For some reason it puts it right in the middle of the screen. I don't know why. Or the two screens. And
so that just takes a sec.
okay. Just take it a minute. Here. There it is. Okay. All right, so here's what it looks like, and it's just organized a little bit cleaner than it was in Wonders, but it kind of gives you the same information that you've pulled. All of that's there, and I'll show you again. You can see where the start time, end time, positive, negative feedback, if there was any interviewer observation in that particular measure. And then you can see, here we go, is engagement, which is obviously the first phase of questions, and then planning, which is the second phase. And then you can see right there that there's the numeric value and then the text value, because we pulled for both. So it depends on how you want to play around with your export and what purposes you need it for further analyses. But that is available to you, those options. So it's just important also to remember that these are set up a little bit differently in terms of, it doesn't say 1.1 or 1.3. It now gives you the phase and the number of the question in there. It's still pretty self-explanatory though. But so that's what that looks like. And I'm going to go ahead and close out of that, minimize that. All right, and we'll just go back to our home page. But were there any questions about the reports again, or the exporting features, or really anything in this demo that you'd like to just address before we kind of do some finishing up of some details here?
One of the really good things previously was that you could look at the individual questions and see how well we did, if there was a specific item area where we were doing well or poorly. That's still one of the reports?
Yep.
Yeah, let's see, which one is it?
I'm saying for the WIFI. I mostly look at the WIFI. We do TOMS too, but I don't look at that much.
Yeah, it's number 8. I'll just show you what it looks like. We'll just click on it. Click on it.
Report number 8?
Yes. Let's load it up here. Yeah, report 8, item summaries. And so it just gives you, here's the principal and the little graphs. And here's a good example of one that has multiple pages. So you're just going to click that at the top, and it just takes you page by page. So.
All right, so for each item, then you can see if you're doing well or poorly compared to national average or your own threshold that you want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, so there's that. All right, sounds like we might not have any other questions, but just interrupt me if we do. I'm going to go ahead and bring us back to our PowerPoint here. Bear with me for a second. For this. Okay. There it is. Okay. So one of the things that we're going to wrap up here with is sort of the way that we would like you to give us some feedback. And we discussed a little bit about kind of spot checking some of that data that has been mapped over from Wonders. And as we mentioned, April and I have done some pretty extensive checking on these forms for all sites. but it would be valuable for you guys to kind of just do a quick eye over your information that's in there. And we're going to go ahead and share a form with you in Excel to be able to provide feedback if something isn't correct that you've noticed, for example, and just a way to do it concise way to provide feedback. So, but here are the types of things that you're going to just make sure to be checking on. Is the name right? Does the ID match up with the correct name? Date of birth, the ethnicity section, of course. And then just to see if you have the correct forms in there for each use. And obviously, if you have a lot of use, you might just want to take a percent of the use that's in there and check that. You don't need to go through individual by individual. Now, one of the things that we did discover in the last day or so is actually that this particular link down here to a Wonders staging site isn't currently working. So you're going to really need to kind of check against another system that you might have used, or if you entered this data somewhere else, probably you didn't, but your hard copy forms are probably going to be most likely the way that you would go in terms of spot checking. We were trying to set this up for the purposes of testing this information, but currently the site is down. If that changes, though, we will let you know.
I'm not sure what you're saying now. I sort of interpret that to mean that what we had in Wonders is not being transferred over to this new system?
No, it is, and that's
it is. Oh, okay. Well,
when you say hard copy, you mean the actual forms that we completed, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, but what we've already entered into Wonders is going to in WrapTrack.
So we'll check that in WrapTrack.
Yep. Exactly. Yep, and that's what you're going to check. Exactly.
Right. Okay.
So you'll take that WIFI form and you'll pull it up and you'll look for that particular use in this WrapTrack system, and you'll make sure that some of that data that was entered in is accurate to that use. Yeah, so all of the data that was in Wonders is in WrapTrack. So,
okay.
A couple other important pieces of information, though, however, is if for whatever reason, if there wasn't a demographic form filled out for that use may not have transferred to WrapTrack. So that's going to be important to remember. Also, if you're looking at the reports section, just to see that, just make sure to note that it probably wasn't going to exactly match what used to be in Wonders, because again, we were experiencing a lot of errors with Wonders at the end of its life. So we, kind of just keep that in mind if you're looking at the reports. And again, if you're missing anything, just to kind of check in with that jurisdictional admin, and then that individual would check back in with us if there are additional questions or concerns. But that individual is going to be responsible for making sure that everybody else has their username and password and the proper permissions set up. So, but again, if there's questions around that, you can always ask us. And then what we want to do is talk about the time frame of that. So basically, we want to give folks until March 10th to let us know if there are any errors with the mapping. So again, the mapping from Wonders to WrapTrack. And we're going to go ahead and send an Excel file, like I said, to be able to report those errors. I'm going to pull that up here in a second. But again, you just send that to RapEval, and April or myself will address that, or you can always call us with any questions. So let me pull that information up here. That's what the testing sheet is, sort of what we've been calling it, but this is where you're going to record your feedback. And basically, we've given you just a few examples, 3 examples here, just to have when looking at it. But when you actually go ahead and send us this form back, please make sure to remove these examples and just include only the information that you want to send to us. But in looking at them, you can see, for example, the first column here is what you're going to put when you're looking in the system. So, for example, if you're looking at a WIFI form and that's the error, you'd want to make sure that you indicate that here, where you were in the system when you saw an error or an issue or whatever it may be. And you can even get as specific as saying, the caregiver WIFI for form did blah, 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 or whatever it is. But there is also a part to include who exactly it is and what organization or configuration you're from. Pardon me, excuse me. So you want to make sure to do that because we need to know who's providing this feedback. And then additionally, that individual needs to, again, include their login and password because April and I no longer have access to that information. So again, you're going to need to provide that every time there is an issue or an error moving forward as well because we won't be able to replicate that unless we have that password. And this column is sort of where you're going to indicate what type of feedback you're providing. So for example, like we were talking about, if there was an error with a form or something didn't seem to be calculating right, or in this case, this is relating to a TOM export, you would call that a bug. So when I hit export in the TOM section, it gave me an error message. So it prevents you, and you can read this little description up here, but it prevents you from functioning in the system appropriately. So that's what a bug is. An edit is, if there's something that doesn't prevent you from moving forward, but would be appropriate to edit, like if there's a typo, for example, or something was misspelled, that would be something that would be similar to an edit. And then the new development is really going to be anything that you guys see that might be a great idea for the system moving forward, and we might be able to include it in the next iteration of WrapTrack because, obviously we're always kind of trying to update and keep this relevant and fresh. So if you're finding that you've got a great idea for something moving forward, you call it a new development and include that in the feedback form. Final piece of it is, obviously you would have described what it is and sort of what you want to see changed, but the final piece is we're really encouraging people to also include screenshots because it's just extremely helpful for our programmers. And this screenshot doesn't relate to these examples here, but we've just included it, and I think the issue with this particular thing was we wanted them to change this case number to RAP ID, so we just made sure that we described that appropriately in the form, and we included a screenshot with some other information. And you can make them as small as you need to kind of fit in the document, and the programmers can just expand them to view them or see what you're referring to. But screenshots as appropriate are really helpful. So that would be all you would need to do, just this gray section of the form. And again, we would like you guys to be able to send that back to us no later than March 10th so that we can make sure that all of the errors or bugs, if there are any, have been fixed for you all. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So any questions about that or any concerns, again, you'll send that to us and we'll move forward with that. All right, great. Doesn't sound like it. So we have some time, and I don't know if folks would prefer this, but if you'd like, we can actually start to walk through a little bit of the that jurisdictional administrator piece. And for the folks who are on the phone, if you think that that's appropriate to kind of do that and like how you would give someone permissions, how you would add a new user, some of that stuff, we can do that since we aren't out of time.
I think, yeah, what might be appropriate is for jurisdictional admins like Ray and Susan to stay on if you want, and everyone else can hop off the line. Just know that your next step after we get off the call is to go and try and log in.
This is Ray. We're good.
Okay, so Ray, you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how good we are, but we're good.
Well, yeah.
Sherry's good. I'm not always so good.
I don't know if I missed this in the presentation, but when will we be able to start entering data?
Well, I mean, you can kind of start entering data now at this point because, as April said, the next step is to go into the system and log in with your Wonders username and password and make sure you can get in. But we do also want to just kind of reiterate the kind of brief checking on some of this stuff first. But yeah, certainly you can go in and start entering new use as well.
Once you feel confident that your Wonders data was mapped correctly, feel free to start entering data.
Okay. And when will you be assigning, or is this part of the next step where we talk about the administrative jurisdictional, I can't even talk. Is that something that, to assign permissions for users and that sort of thing?
Yeah, if you'd like to listen in on that, we could talk about that next piece now.
Okay,
But
I'm here.
in the short term, I mean, for the short of it is go to the website and try and log in with your Wonders password, login and password. If that doesn't work, email us and we'll have to set it up for you.
Okay.
Okay.
We're going to step out now and sign off.
Okay.
All right,
This is
thanks,
Ray
guys.
and Sherry.
Great. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. We'll call you if we have to on any of the follow-up issues.
Great. And we'll be sending out this PowerPoint and the testing sheet, Excel sheet, and all that after
Hey.
the webinar.
Okay, thank you.
Take
Thanks.
care.
Take care.
Yep.
This is Ashley. I'm going to sign off now as well.
Okay.
Thanks, Ashley.
Okay. Bye.
So, Sue, is that something you'd want to stay on for?
Well, yeah, I wouldn't mind, talking about what that will involve a bit.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll take a look at it.
Okay.
All right. So,
Sue, do you remember your login and password?
I have it written down somewhere. You hang on, I can access that.
okay.
Yep, I do. Look. I say that. WMD. I do have it. I can't access it right at this moment. I'll look while we're talking.
No problem.
Okay.
So should we hold off on this piece? Or
No,
go
let's log
to-
in as my SAT HEA.
Okay, I don't know the THSATHEA. Weird that
See if
it normally
it's my-
pops up, right?
Yeah, let me see.
Okay.
For some reason, it's not working.
Okay.
Let me see if it's this one. Yeah.
Got it.
Go ahead and go WrapTrack admin.
Okay. All right, sorry, Sue, bear with us for 1 sec.
Yeah.
We could also log in as Erica.
That's true.
She's the jurisdiction. Or we could set Sue's up right now.
Yeah. I do have my password now.
Okay. And you know what I'm remembering right now? That, Sue, you guys didn't have a ton of data in Wonders. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Oh, yeah. We were going to enter it.
Yep. So because of that, it costs a certain amount of money to have each business transferred or each configuration transferred. So what we decided to do, April and I, was to go ahead and we're just going to enter your data for you, the few that was in there. But now I am, oh yeah, we have that, so we'll do that. And we'll get you started on it. But if you actually wouldn't mind sending me your username and password in an email right now, that'd be great, just so that we have it.
The ones I want, or the one? The one they assigned me.
The one you want is fine.
Oh yeah, I guess the one you want is fine too. Yeah.
Yeah, because like they have my login as Wings, which I'd rather it be related to my name in some way.
Yeah,
Okay.
this one actually works anymore.
Yeah. Okay, so why don't you send us what you'd like it to be, your username and password, given the HIPAA regulation information that we were talking about, and we'll get you set up, and we'll get that those pieces of data entered, and then you guys can go ahead and get in there.
In the meantime, we can quickly administrative.
So I have Henrietta's email. Who else do I send it to?
That was me. That's me. Henrietta's is my full official name.
What do
but
you go by?
I go by Hattie.
Okay, that's cute. And you want, so I'm just forwarding you back what you gave me for my username and ID for me and Jeff.
Okay.
And then you want me to tell you what I want it to be, or
Great.
That is what you said, right? Okay. And also, what else? You said you needed something about HIPAA. Did I miss that?
Oh, just to keep in mind that when you're thinking of a new username and password, to keep in mind those HIPAA regulations we were talking about earlier on, like you'll need a character and a number and probably an uppercase letter, you know, all that stuff that is typically required of pretty special logins.
Okay. All right. And that should do it.
Okay.
And okay, I just sent that to you. So do you want to wait to do this training, or are you going to be able to do this now?
We can probably still show you.
I can wait, you know.
Yeah, we only have a couple minutes left, so, and we're also going to be creating an administrative manual that we're working on already.
Okay.
But essentially what that has up shows you how you can set up new users and how you can set up across your site.
So yeah, that's
basically.
Yeah, when you get in there, you'd hit your admin, because we'll obviously make sure that you're that jurisdictional admin, and then you click on Administrative Tool from that tab. And this is just going to allow you to play around with the roles. I think you can, well, manage roles. Select the roles of, you know, the individuals and set up permissions for them based on whatever role that you've selected and the tool that you might be using, etc., and then adding a user if you need to have more users in there. So that's basically what this admin.
Yeah, that looks pretty straightforward.
Yeah, too bad. I think that the tricky part really, just getting familiar with it more than anything, is the permissions tab. And so, like, if you wanted to say like that you wanted to have a program admin, basically what these next row of tabs will do is, if you go to like the enrollment thing, for example, you're basically saying that you selected the program administrator, and in enrollment you want to make sure that they can create a new case record, view those assignments, assign a facilitator, you know, that kind of stuff. So if you checked it, you're basically allowing that role those permissions, and you just go down the line and select what makes sense for your community. So you might just want to, you know, play around with it first and get familiar with it before you make any decisions. Yes, it's fairly straightforward, honestly. So, but again.
Oh yeah, it looks pretty good. Yeah, it's very pretty.
Yeah, we're super happy with the way it looks.
Good, good. So yeah, we're anxious to get some data entered so we can get some reports as a starting place for some coaching that we're doing. And so an agency-wide coaching, we're really anxious to get started. So, you know, I could start entering, I'll probably start entering the data at first because I'm hiring someone to do data entry here in Bangor, and I'll train Ashley for our other office area. And then when you get our other data entered, if you could give me an email, that would be great.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll get you started with the setup and get some of that data entered. I'll probably work on that, and I'll hopefully get back to you as soon as I can. In full disclosure, we do have quite a few of these WrapTrack trainings that we're working on, but I'll try to do my best to get it to you as quickly as possible.
Well, I mean, how many did I have? If I just had a handful, I mean, I would be more than happy to re-enter those. That's not a big deal. I know exactly. Actually, I have them right in front of me. So why don't you just put that off, and we'll do it. I'll probably want to enter them a little bit differently now anyway, as far as which information I'm going to enter. And
all right. Yeah, your configuration set up then.
I did want to ask you a quick question. I wished I thought to ask it when everyone else was here, but you know, what are the benefits at this point of putting in real names of the clients? Because I don't want to do it unless there's a purpose.
It's only for your tracking purposes.
Only for our tracking purposes. Okay, I'm going to have to think about that.
Yeah. But it is, obviously, there are a lot more HIPAA and FERPA regulations connected to WrapTrack than there were with Wonders, so bear that in mind, but you certainly do not have to add the names or the date of birth. So it's up to you guys.
Okay. And we're also thinking of using the EZ. I have to get that approved by Trish, but You know, it's sort of like, because it hasn't been thoroughly tested yet, or hasn't been around as long, we want to get the respect, you know, when we publish the data, but I don't know. We like it a lot better.
Yeah. Did you see our pilot results?
I'm sorry, what?
Sue, did you see the pilot results?
I don't believe I did.
Okay, yeah, those are published. Go to our work page.
I will.
Which we can send you in the email. Actually, I'll just send it to you right here.
Oh, that would be really helpful. That would help me not forget it.
No problem.
Like I said, I'm down a person right now, so I'm doing double duty. Because, yeah, I mean, if we can just, yeah, I think that would be really good.
Okay. And then as you guys look at it and think about it, if you want to decide to move in that direction, you just let us know at any point.
I will do that. Well, thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
You
Hi,
too.
bye-bye.
Bye.